And welcome to this edition of the Native News Update on this Wednesday, November 28th. I am the host for today's program, Paul DeMain, and many of the stories we read here can also be found at our website, IndianCountryTV.com. And here are some of the news stories for the day from the Associated Press and other Native news sources. After nearly 17 years of courtroom arguments, congressional negotiations, and legal maneuverings, hundreds of thousands of Native Americans could see the first payments of a $3.4 billion U.S. government settlement by the end of the year, plaintiffs' attorneys said November 26th. The settlement between Native Americans across the United States and the government over more than a century's worth of squandered and mismanagement land trust royalties became final on November 23rd when the appeal period expired. 4 tribes in the Dakotas who claim their money and trust lands were mismanaged have received more than $100 million through settlements with the federal government for their tribal governments. The federal government is paying more than $1 billion to dozens of tribes across the country that work to reclaim money they said was lost in mismanagement accounts and from royalties for oil, gas, grazing, and timber rights on tribal lands. That settlement was announced in April. The Standing Rock Sioux tribe in North Dakota and South Dakota is getting $49 million, Justice Department spokesman Wynn Hornbuckle told the Daily Republic newspaper. In South Dakota, the Rosebud Sioux are getting $20 million, the Lower Brule Sioux $18 million, and the Crow Creek Sioux $14.5 million. A federal judge on November 28th blocked Wisconsin's Chippewa tribes from hunting deer at night for at least the next 2 weeks. U.S. District Judge Barbara Crabb issued the surprise ruling during what was scheduled as a telephone status conference with state and tribal attorneys. State Department of Natural Resources attorney Quinn Williams told the Associated Press. The judge said the DNR can enforce its long-standing ban on night deer hunting until December 12th, when the tribes and the state are due back in court for a hearing. Great Lakes Indian Fish and Wildlife Commission, which oversees the Chippewas' off-reservation rights, quietly certified 74 tribal hunters last week as eligible to harvest deer after dark across the ceded territory, a swath of northern Wisconsin the tribes retained hunting and fishing rights on. The tribe pursued the right to hunt at night after the DNR said hunting wolves at night by shining was safe for non-native hunters. The newly elected president of the Oglala Sioux tribe is questioning why the tribes are trying to buy a piece of land in the Black Hills they consider sacred. Brian Brewer says it's great the tribes of the Great Sioux Nation may have a chance to get back the land, but he wonders why the tribe should have to pay for it. Says Brewer, that's our land. An 1868 treaty set aside the Black Hills and other land for the Sioux, but Congress passed a law in 1877 seizing the land once gold was discovered there. The tribes have refused to accept money from the federal government for that land seizure. The tribes are trying to raise $9 million by this Friday to purchase the land they call Peshla. Officials from about 20 of Oklahoma's federally recognized tribes joined Governor Mary Fallin, who held a special ceremony to recognize a national proclamation of November as Native American Heritage Month. The ceremony this week was well received by tribal officials who have seen the governor's office entangled in lawsuits with 2 of the state's largest tribes, the Chickasaw and the Choctaw Nations, over water rights in southeastern Oklahoma. Fallin's office also pushed a bill to eliminate the State Indian Affairs Commission, which the legislature approved in the year 2011, and replaced the state agency with a Native American liaison post in her office. Fallin on November 27th stressed the importance of good relations with the state's 38 federally recognized tribes and says she's meeting weekly with her Native American liaison, Jackie Hensley. The bones of Native Americans who once farmed in what is now western Arkansas are one step closer to returning to the earth after they were dug out of the ground. The Ozark St. Francis National Forest has completed an inventory of 28 sets of human remains and artifacts and determined that they are culturally affiliated with current-day tribes, the Caddo Nation of Oklahoma and the Osage Nation, according to the Arkansas Democratic Gazette. That means the bones can be claimed by the tribes and returned under the Native American Graves Repatriation Act, a law signed by George H.W. Bush in 1990. Since the law took effect, more than 38,600 human remains and nearly 1 million associated funerary objects have been returned to the tribes, according to the National Park Service. As the tribe behind one of the country's largest casino adjusts to life with six-figure stipends, more Mashantucket Pequot tribal members are going to work at the Foxwoods Resort Casino. Members of the tribe in southeastern Connecticut receive special consideration for employment and promotions under the law. Tribal members who take entry-level jobs at the casino also have been eligible for supplemental pay that raises their minimum wage to about $24 an hour. A trickle of recent tribal hires has included 15 who took jobs as table game dealers. Their status has emerged as a contentious labor issue at Foxwoods, with one union pushing in contract talks to protect veteran workers' seniority rights. The Pequots halted generous revenue-sharing payments earlier this year as they struggle through a financial crisis. Delegates from 3 Ute tribes went home to Colorado earlier this month at the invitation of the federal government, which pushed them out of Colorado over 100 years ago in order to bless this year's Capitol Christmas tree. The tree, which adorns the west lawn of the U.S. Capitol, came from the Blanco Ranger District of the White River National Forest east of Meeker, Colorado. At the request of the U.S. Forest Service, a group from the southern Ute tribe, Ute, Mountain Ute, and the northern Ute came to give the tree a traditional blessing before cutting. Tribal elder Alden Naranjo gave the blessing talk for the 73-year-old, 74-foot-tall Engelmann spruce, which traveled more than 5,000 miles to its destination. The official lighting will take place on Tuesday, December 4th. And that is going to be another roundup of news from Indian Country. On this edition of the Native News Update, we want to say miigwech for joining with us, and come back again soon.